The Hornets' newly put together coaching staff getting recognized nationally. How big of a deal is it for us here in Hornets land? David Walker joins us as well to talk about the Bally Amazon fallout. And yeah, we'll even have a Hornet stat draft round once again. All today on Locked On Hornets.
I think you could accuse us of being starving. You could accuse us of being sickos.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods, and that does include YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime? Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. David, you have another shot here. 3, 2, 1. What time is it? Game time.
Game time. Still late.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's
We'll work on
okay.
it. That's
we'll
David Walker.
He's
He's the voice that you heard last in our both Game Time attempts there, both of them. David Walker, you can find him on Twitter at David B. Walker. There's Doug Branson. You know who he is on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also on his subtext. You can find his information on his Substack. And you also know him on Twitter, Doug Branson, LOH. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. on Wes and Walker, Sports Radio 92.7 FM. So you can listen to me on the radio. You don't watch me on TV. I would like to watch the Hornets somewhere else other than Bally. We'll get to them in just a moment. But we will be talking about some of the guys that are featured in what is a nationally recognized coaching staff now. Doug, is that what you're telling me? We actually have some people that national NBA pundits are excited about when it comes to molding and teaching of the young basketball minds.
Well, they are nationally recognized by The Athletic in this particular instance because of their youth. This is the 40 under 40 list by The Athletic. Now, it was an alphabetical order. They did not go with Rank Radio here and rank these. But I will not go in alphabetical order. I will give seniority the order. So we will start with Charles Lee, the head coach, at 39 years old. The Athletic writes, Lee got a team of his own to run this spring after coming close several times in the past. The Hornets were not only willing to hire him, but waited more than a month for him as he finished off a title run on Joe Mazzulla's staff in Boston. Next, we go to the general manager, or the executive VP of basketball operations. He's got that super sweet title. The one, the only Jeff Peterson at age 35, The Athletic writes, after 4+ seasons as a well-respected executive in Brooklyn, Peterson was hired to run his own team this winter. Peterson has already put together a smart front office in Charlotte, and his relationship with Hornets co-owner Rick Schnall goes back a decade when Peterson was in the Hawks front office and Schnall was a minority owner of the franchise. And finally, at 34 years old, Dotun Akinwale, the Charlotte Hornets assistant general manager. He's now, the Athletic writes, he's now a part of the new brain trust in Charlotte as the Hornets try to build out of an 8-year playoff drought.
Big deal for me. I think it's nice to see that the Hornets were making decisions that other people in the know think are smart decisions. So we thought about it, but you could say, you could charge us with being biased. You could charge us, even though I think we would be too much in the know ourselves with what the Hornets have done, and we're a little skeptical of some of the hires. It's not like we're biased, saying, "Oh yeah, these guys are going to be great." But we did like Charles Lee. We did like everything they made, all the decisions they made after that. We liked Jeff Peterson. I've said it a bunch. It felt like Jeff Peterson was the guy next in line to get one of these general manager jobs, and the Hornets job just so happened to be open in the middle of the season, and he knows the owners. He's in with Rick Schnall, so he gets the opportunity to run his own team here in Charlotte. Love seeing it. I think it is a big deal. Would you agree with that, David?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you forget Jeff Peterson at 35. I mean, that just so blows my mind a little bit because that's super young, but he's got a lot of experience. And the thing we've talked about with that tandem coming in the whole time is, yes, they're young, but they've seen a lot of stuff. Like, they've gone through a lot of different variations of teams, team building, championship runs, So, like, this is a good start, a good step forward. I think you'd be a little concerned if none of them made this 40 under 40 list. I don't know what the pool is for under 40-year-olds right now in the NBA. But, it's good to see that. And that's what you want to see if you're just trying to shake off whatever happened in the past with the Hornets. You want to see that to your point, like Charles Lee was in the discussion, was in the next round of hires coming up, right? So it's good to be in that area of, hey, we are going along the right path, and other people are recognizing that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up real quickly. You talked about, I don't know how many basically under 40-year-old guys there are. Like, I don't know about general managers, but I was looking up just how many head coaches there were under 40. A little more than I thought. So Charles Lee, JJ Redick, they're both 39 years old. And and
is Redick on this list?
Redick was on this list.
So both
and
Dagenham
Dagenham was on this list. OKC head coach.
They're 39 years old. They are both tied for fifth youngest in the NBA. So I would have expected 39 years old as a head coach. That's got to be second, but Mazzulla's 35. He's the youngest coach in the NBA. So there's a few pieces up there, pieces to winning teams that are a part of this list. And we are not a winning team, but of course these are the guys that we hope to fix all of that. And
so you mentioned Mazzulla there. Age obviously doesn't matter here. I mean, they won a championship with a 35-year-old head coach and a 39-year-old lead assistant. So, it's not what it used to be. That's number one. Number two, I want to go back to something you said, Walker, that you could accuse us of being biased. I think you could accuse us of being starving. You could accuse us of being sickos. We, like the Athletic mentioned here, we would enjoy if they built out of an 8-year playoff drought. I think that would be fun for fans. It would be fun to cover. It would be fun to analyze a team that is actually in contention. And so what has been refreshing about all of this is that they have done something that they have rarely done, even if you go back into the Bobcats era, rarely done, which is invest in youth and creativity. I mean, apart from James Borrego, you're talking about a lot of coaching hires that have been, senior guys that have been around the NBA for a long time. And so to have all of this creativity, this youth, this energy be inserted particularly into this roster that is young in itself, I think is very important.
I also wanted to spend a little more time on Dotunak and Wally. I think that's a big deal too. We got to see him featured in the Hornets Real Access 30-minute long episode. He was a part of the draft room conversation, which is what you would expect from assistant GM. But if you go to the other pro sports team here in town, at least one of the older ones with the Carolina Panthers, you always have to worry, even with them struggling since the David Tepper era. But even with that, you always have to worry about other teams poaching some of the impressive coaches on your squad. And we've never really had to worry about that with the Hornets. Jay Triano is a name that maybe comes to mind that really helped James Borrego. He was this bright offensive mind. Everybody knows about the out-of-bounds plays that he would design that really helped this team. But honestly, as far as these teams want somebody in our organization and they want to promote that person, we're going to lose them. We have to replace that person. We haven't had to worry about that, which is bad, mostly bad and a little good at the same time. Maybe we do with Dotunak and Wally. Maybe he is next in line to go be a general manager. Now, you have the guy anyway with Jeff Peterson. It's not like it would be a monster loss. You would still have the head of the infrastructure here as we're trying to undergo a culture shift. But it is interesting to see somebody that is an assistant GM, I'm sure, has aspirations to be a general manager in this league. So now maybe that is a new problem we have to worry about. Other teams infiltrating our organization to go get some of these other talented guys at positions that are under some of the top authority figures. And okay, maybe that is a new problem we have to experience. How do you replace them? How big of a loss is it truly to lose some of those guys? So something interesting that we could be experiencing in the next 2-3 years.
We're dreaming, baby. We're sick. We want that problem so bad.
That's right. We'll see.
And then when it happens, we'll complain about it.
That's true. I'm going to be mad. Whatever the team is. Don't, as long as Miami doesn't do it. Don't you do it.
That way you've just spoken it into existence. Congratulations.
I knocked on wood. That's the answer to everybody's problem. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Of course, we all want to watch the Hornets. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes that's not. And the culprit for that is Bally. Now, the Bally Amazon deal that was reported, I guess, half a year ago at this point? No longer. We'll talk about the fallout coming up next on LOH. Before we move on, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime. Nice, David. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So Gametime helps you not waste time anymore. They also give you a bunch of great deals. You have the flash deals, the zone deals, all of them. Gametime Picks, curation making it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. But the all-in pricing feature is nice as well, so you can toggle that feature. It shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. It's not one of these things where they nickel and dime you at the end. Oh yeah, you forgot about this $15 charge that wasn't included the first time. No, what you see is what you're going to pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Let's move on. A couple more segments to go. Locked On Hornets. Doug, this has been kind of your thing, the Bally terrible experience that everybody has been going through the last couple of years.
The worst thing to have.
I know. All we want to do is watch the team, and sometimes that's, I would say most of the time that's possible. I'm not trying to be this doomsday dude, but it at the beginning of last season, Bally was really trying to figure out all the bugs. Like you quite literally could not bring up the game. You would have to wait until you got to maybe the second quarter, the third quarter in some instances. It did get better, right? Like it got better after we got through the first couple of weeks, but you have to pay a premium. I don't know how much the pricing is going to get better, what decision, however, the fallout is. But we have some news as far as Amazon picking up Bally at first and Diamond Sports Group. No longer here, Doug. Tell the people what's going on between Amazon and Bally.
Yeah, so Diamond Sports Group is the parent company of Bally. And the Diamond Sports Group was responsible for broadcasting 15 of the 30 NBA teams' games. And then when Bally/Diamond Sports Group went through a bankruptcy, there were options across those teams of, hey, do you want to stick around with Bally as they navigate the bankruptcy process? Or do you want to bail? And then we got news that this Amazon deal might happen, and I think a lot of the teams, 13 in fact of the 15, remained with the Bally deal, and that included the Charlotte Hornets. The two teams that dropped out were the Dallas Mavericks and the New Orleans Pelicans. Well, Amazon, who, by the way, already worked out their own deal for national TV games with the NBA, and that's a little bit up in the air with Warner Brothers, TNT, all of that, fighting back on the match positions. But it seems like Amazon's going to get this thing done. So you take that, plus the fact that they lost two decently sized properties in the Dallas Mavericks and the New Orleans Pelicans, and Amazon said, you know what, we're actually going to back out of this thing, which you would think would put Bally's prospects of digging themselves out of bankruptcy, would put those prospects maybe a little bit lower in terms of probability. But the NBA is confident that Bally is going to be able to broadcast games this season. Yeah. Now, will they be able to pay the 13 NBA teams, including the Hornets, all the way through the season? Well, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're as confident in that. An NBA executive was quoted in a Sports Business Journal article saying, we're pretty confident they can pay early. We're not as confident that by the end of the season we'll still be getting payments from Bally. So, for Hornets fans, you're going to be able to watch in big quotation marks, you are theoretically going to be able to watch the games on Bally, provided that they actually get their tech right. But after that, I think it's way up in the air. And I think if you're betting on it, bet on them not being broadcast on Bally next season.
Yeah. So just to clarify, had this deal stayed in place, Bally would have still broadcast or done the broadcasting of the game, but you would have accessed it through Amazon, right?
I think when they were discussing this, yes, it would. You would get it cable via Bally or Bally Sports Southeast,
right?
And then, but people would have the option to subscribe to Amazon Prime and then go, get it that way as well. But really, what it represented for Bally was a financial lifeline that they needed to navigate the bankruptcy. But according to them, they don't necessarily need it, although people say a lot of things and don't really mean them when you're talking about business deals. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate part is there's just not going to be – you're not going to be able to turn on your YouTube TV or whatever streaming service you may have and pick up the Hornets games. Like that's – I think what – I mean, that's what I wanted, right? I mean, so you're still going to have to do your Bally's app and all, you know – that
right.
You'll still have to access the team game through another app, pay, like Walker said, a premium to do that. So it'll be the same old song and dance, at least through this year. And hopefully next year they can get something figured out. It's frustrating. You know, we were just talking about before we went on, you know, you go to a bar or you go to a restaurant and it's 50-50. You never know. Yeah. If you ask them to turn on the Hornets game, which you always have to do, which we should all do.
What, the Hornet? Which Hornets? What?
You know, you never know if they have it. So this has been such a long process to just get a normalized way to watch the Hornets in Charlotte. It's insane, but maybe coming to the end of this, regardless of how you get there, will help, but it's certainly not going to, it'd be shocking if anything changed, certainly for this season. We just talking about, there's some teams that are now scrambling, like the Mavs, trying to figure out how they're going to broadcast their games. So who knows?
Well, and as people, right, are cutting cable, and as that process began, however long ago it was, the products that survived were the products that were well made. And like YouTube TV is where I go to. I know a lot of people went to YouTube TV. And so the products that are surviving right now and even thriving, they're the ones that, there's a lot of content that most people want. Sports is very different. It's weird. What? Not everybody cares about sports? That's interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, like the good products are the one that survives in a lot of lines of work and product consumption, right? Where Bally, it's just they fumbled so hard with this. The pricing is so much, but also it's just a terrible product from what we've seen. It doesn't have anything to do with the programming because everybody loves Eric Collins. Everybody loves Del Curry. Has zero to do with the programming. It has everything to do with the accessibility to be able to receive the service that you pay for, which is ultimately being able to lay eyes on your favorite basketball team, which is ultimately good for the NBA and everybody involved. If this thing works, then it's good for everybody involved. And it's just not something that you can rely on game in and game out, which is unbelievable, honestly, with this type of corporation that we're talking about. It's the association, and you can't rely on this single product to watch your favorite team night in and night out.
Yeah, look, there will be pain in the short term, but I think this is actually great news for fans because Bally as a company has been hostile to their customer base, and they need to go away. They don't need to. The whole RSN, regional sports network model, is dead. It's not even dying. It's dead, and we're just dealing with the zombie corpse of Bally. And Amazon would have, been in that zombie show when they put the zombie in a cage, until they can find a cure. That's what this. But there's no chance of finding a cure. What Amazon leaving is doing is putting a bullet straight in the head of that zombie and killing it. And that's what Hornets fans need. They need less zombies. And I'll tell you another thing. If the Charlotte Hornets were in a better financial position post Jordan's sale, and had there not been so many different things that I think that Schnall and Plotkin were trying to figure out, then I think they would have done what Dallas and New Orleans did, which is, hey, you know what? We're just going to leave, and we may have to scramble. We'll put our games on local TV for now until we figure out maybe a streaming service or whatever, but we'll figure it out. But Dallas and New Orleans, I think, are privileged in that way. They had that opportunity, whereas Charlotte, I think, really looked at it and said, look, if there's better than not odds that Bally can deliver us a bag of cash each month, that's going to be better for us this season and then can allow us some time to figure out what's best for fans. But honestly, I hope that's what they're doing. I hope behind the scenes they understand that Bally is not going to exist next season, and they need to be working every day to figure out a solution that opens up this team to more fans. So I hope there's an over-the-air option because more people need to see this product so that, when they do start winning, that more people will start talking about it.
Yeah, and I'll just say, it's amazing. I mean, we don't think about it like this because obviously we're watching the Hornets and we're going to go wherever we need to. But I'll talk to people that are sports fans in Charlotte that have a YouTube TV or whatever. didn't even know Bally's had an app. Didn't even know you could go and access it, right? I mean, it's just
ignorance.
Not
Well, in that case, David, ignorance is bliss. Not knowing that they have an app they've saved them a lot of stress. Those people are probably very relaxed.
Oh, the jokes write themselves. When the Hornets were getting blown out and there was also a blackout on Bally, it was like, well, thanks for saving me, Bally. Those tweets were flying all over the Hornets community. And I'll make them again, damn it, because they're funny and it's low-hanging fruit, and I will absolutely pick that apple from that low on the branch. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. It's the Hornets stat draft. We did this with David last week. We will continue. We have a few more rules that Doug is trying to implement because he didn't love the way, I guess, that it went the first time. That he thought there was some funny business. Okay, so he'll relay some of the new rules, and then we'll also continue to select different Hornets stats, the over-under, coming up next. Locked On Hornets. Before we do that, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It works the same. It's the same exact feeling. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets.
David, before we get to the stat draft, this is your lone appearance for the week, so I have a question for you. The NBA commentary at the national media is really gearing up in all of their preseason, coverage, previewing the NBA season, and so you know what that means, folks. It's time to joke around on the Hornets. So we've heard it from, what was the guy's name, Walker? Ed McMahon from ESPN.
Tim McMahon.
Tim McMahon, sorry. Right. I always get that wrong. Tim McMahon railing against LaMelo Ball. You've had Stephen A. Smith. Shout out to our guy Evan, who got on Stephen A.'s show and just mentioned the word Hornets, and Stephen A. was like, no chance. That team's got no chance. No chance.
Did you say Hornets?
The Charlotte
No
Hornets?
chance.
The Charlotte Hornets? No chance. You got no chance.
Well, he did the thing that the guy in the bar would do. He's like, the Charlotte Hornets?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Charlotte? So you had that, and then there was one other thing. I was listening to a podcast with Nate Silver, who was on what was the guy's name? Just some random podcast he was on that I was listening to, and he mentioned that because Nate Silver, this guy that does elections now, but he was famous for being a poker player and being really good at gambling, and he was talking about gambling, and he said if I put a bet early on a Hornets Wizards game, they're not going to let me do that bet because I'm too good, and that's such an obscure game. So even on this random podcast that has nothing to do with sports, I can't avoid the Hornets slander. David, how does it make you feel?
Not only that, I saw on Twitter last night, NBA 2K, they had full-on LaMelo injury play highlights. I don't know if you guys saw this.
I did see that. I saw you tweet this out, David.
What in the hell? Now, as far as the graphics go and the gameplay, the little Euro he moved to get to the basket, very accurate. And, of course, the jokes just flowed in the mentions after that. But I'm like, oh, this is how we're starting things? Look, we know this. It's going to be like this until things change on the court. And, as far as Stephen A. goes, Vegas is in agreement with him. There's no movement to be made. Doug, you're in agreement with Vegas, so you're basically in agreement with Stephen A. You guys talked about the over-under for wins recently. It's just we got to see it. You got to see it first. And as hard as it is for Hornets fans to keep taking these shots, just catching strays left and right. They're not even strays now. They're just double taps.
No, these are assassination attempts. These are not strays. Here's the thing. I think that it has reached a peak. It has reached a level of absurdity that has not been rivaled in previous years. And I think that's good news because after the peak, we reached the peak. It's got to go down, right?
Well,
I will say this. There are reasons now to ask the question, right? You've got Brandon Miller. At least you have LaMelo, who's a name. He is maybe known too much for being injured in video games, but they're starting to ask the questions now. You've got the new regime. You've got changes being made. Does that equal wins? Does that equal jumps up in the win column? And people are still saying no. But at least there's room for those questions to be asked now. Maybe that's the first step.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say, most of the time, like I was talking about national podcasts actually giving us some love here in Charlotte for the most part, but it feels like we are down now on the roller coaster. All right, let's do the Hornets stat draft, Doug. You can explain the rules, and then you can set up the order for this next round if you want to.
So if you missed the episode where we did the first 3 rounds of this, we are picking stat categories and a player, and then over under their performance from last season. So, for example, the first overall selection went to David. He selected Brandon Miller, points per game over 17.3. His team also consists of LaMelo Ball, turnovers under 3.8, and Seth Curry, games played over 8.
That's what caused the rule change right there.
Which leads me, well, there's one rule, which is that you can't select a category more than once. And I need to issue a clarification because someone in the comments was confused. That applies to each person. So David can't select points per game again. I could select points per game because I haven't taken that stat cat yet. Mm-hmm. So there's a clarification there. But new rule, because you did Seth Curry games played over 8. I think that the other 2 people should be able to overrule one that they think is funny business. Because I think Seth Curry games played over 8. It may not hit, so maybe it would have been split. Maybe Walker and I would have split. But if somebody said like Tijan Salan over games played 0, the other 2 should be able to be like, no, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. So this is all from David's choice last week. He found a loophole. Look, this is why rules are made. It's because that rule was made for a reason, and David decided to exploit that. And
it's called the Seth rule now. The Seth rule, 2 people can vote and overrule it.
All right, who starts here first? Doug, do you remember the order?
Oh, well, let's see. So it went 1, 2, 3 with David.
I think it was David first last time. I think it might have ended with David as well if we were doing 3-round snake draft.
Sure.
Yeah, so then it goes to you, Walker. You would have the first.
Me? Okay. All right. So, yeah, this one was tough for me, and I was trying to figure it out. This one's going to be a little lofty. It's almost one that I feel like I should get better odds on because it's never happened before for this player who I guess is somewhat of a veteran now. LaMelo Ball shot 50% on 2s last year. It's the best that he shot on 2s. So 45% the year prior, 46% his second year in the league, his all-star season, 49% his rookie year. So 50% on 2s on about 10 attempts per game. It's the most efficient he's been. And yet, I'm going to take the over on LaMelo Ball. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I think LaMelo is in store for a huge season. Health, we're just going to have to get lucky there. I'm hoping the ankle braces matter. I'm hoping he plays with them. I'm hoping he reaches the 65-game threshold to be eligible for awards. But I do think that because of the shooting, because of what I think is a more talented team, because I think that Charles Lee is going to have this team more organized and playing the right way, I think Josh Green is going to help with some of the defensive assignments, so LaMelo isn't going to be asked to do as much defensively. I think there's lots of little things that allow for LaMelo to...
Can he do less?
I mean,
is there less than 0?
Well, I think he's aggressive. I think he's aggressive in passing lanes, and he gambles a lot, right? Like, so I'm thinking, hopefully, hey, don't feel the need to be aggressive because that's going to be Josh Green's thing. Maybe you can't, coach the aggression out of the player defensively, but just stay in front of the man as much as you can. And then if he beats you, there's Mark Williams. I think that's the idea, right? So LaMelo, I'm hoping that all these little changes, all these big changes, that leads to LaMelo in improving a lot more in driving to the rim, which we saw him get to the rim more so last year. If he improves in getting to the rim like he did last year, I'm hoping the improving at finishing at the rim happens this season. Give me the over on something that's never happened before.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, I mean, it would really help, and like because you look at his points per game, great last season. Look at true shooting percentage, terrible. Look at effective field goal percentage, not great. And so that would be one piece. Getting fouled more would also help. So
They would.
I think that's a good pick. So it comes to me now, and I'm looking at my last pick. Here's my team. I've got LaMelo Ball, games played over 22. That was my first pick. Second pick, Brandon Miller, 3-point attempts over 6.7 because Charles Lee has already hinted that they are going to give him more 3-point attempt looks. And then third pick, man, Josh Green assist over 2.3. I'm looking. There's a player, and I'm not going to reveal who it is because I don't want to give David a leg up here in the next pick. But I can't pick this player to get assists because I've already picked assists. But there's a player that's obviously, I think, going to get more assists if this team shoots better. Because he's already a good passer and showed that in limited time with the Hornets last season. So there's some hints, David, or Walker, if you want a leg up in the assist category, because I'm the only one that's taken that stat cat. So instead, I'm going to go to the rebounding category, and I'm going to go Brandon Miller rebounds 4.3. I'm going to go over on that. I think he's going to see increases across the board. Honestly, I think his assists are going to go up. I think and I don't think massively, but I think you're going to see him be just more involved across the board. And if he's shooting more, then maybe there's just a little bit more energy as opposed to, if he's driving all the time, that's wear and tear on the body. Maybe you do a little bit less in other areas, but I think you're going to see both rebounds and assists go up. So I'm going to say rebounding, Brandon Miller, over.
I think you're safe. I would get a little worried about that just because they were so small last year. They asked Brandon to rebound a lot. Like after Mark Williams was gone and never came back, and then Nick Richards was your only big guy. The only other dude was Grant Williams. Brandon Miller was somebody that they had to rely on. So, but just more volume probably allows Brandon to surpass what is a pretty easy mark in my opinion. But yeah, I would say probably over on that. But that would be my only concern is they were really small for a lot of last year. And that was the mark that Brandon came up with. But I think you're safe.
Yeah, I'll say we've done a lot of over here.
I know.
We might need to. But does that speak to our bias? Does that speak to our starvation? Does that speak to our sickoness? Or does that speak to the fact that you can't get much lower than this team has been over the 2 years? So if you're betting on improvement, then you really are betting on a lot of these categories going up.
You have to. Health, right, too. Yeah. I mean, Brandon Miller, barely outpaced Terry Rozier as far as on the offensive boards. So maybe he can grab a couple of those too. And, it's not a huge number to overcome. So I don't mind that for Brandon Miller, especially if he's going to be kind of, trying to get a couple more easy buckets or in towards the paint. So maybe he follows up some of his own. So, yeah, I don't mind that, Doug. I don't mind that at all.
Well,
right,
nobody
David.
wants to bet the under. Like, I mean, I drafted the under on points per game for Miles, and it didn't feel good. This is going to be every podcast. It's not just us.
I took the under on turnovers for LaMelo, which is actually
which is actually the flip.
Right. All right, so I have done the points category, the turnovers category, and the games played category.
That's
do we have a LaMelo Ball 3-point percentage take? As of yet.
Well, no. Yeah. So that I guess would be another rule. I mean, that's obvious. You can't take because that's how a draft works. You can't take the thing that someone else has taken. So, no, we don't have a LaMelo Ball 3-point percentage.
Okay. So last year was just over 35%. Actually, the lowest since his rookie year. So you got it. I'm taking the over again. He's going to have a bounce back 3-point percentage shooting year. Took 9 a game, a little dip down from the previous year. But that 35%, like I said, he shot that his rookie year. And then the previous 2 years was up closer to 40%, but not quite there. But I'm thinking I'm with Walker. I think he's going to have a big year across the board. Health is always going to be the concern, but I think it's time for LaMelo to pop and maybe quiet some of these haters.
I'll say this is among the categories to go over on. I think this is the most dangerous because we have seen how the machinery that's going on within the ankle affected the way he shot. And he made adjustments, and shot it well in that little period where he was healthy. But at the same time, ankle brace, there are a lot of variables. You're betting an over on a thing with a ton of variables at this point. So I think it is a little bit dangerous.
All right. Well, I'm going to take an under here. I'm going to take Miles Bridges field goal attempts under.
Oh, wow. You're already going into the next round. All right.
Yes. I'm sorry. You got me all fired up.
This is 3-point attempts under, or just
goal
attempts?
Just shot attempts. As we know, he won't be by himself out there this year. Brandon Miller looks to get a few more looks. No Terry Rozier, so that will be kind of spread out evenly among everyone else. But with LaMelo back out there, I think you've got your two top scorers in LaMelo and Brandon. And with Walker taking the under on points, this might align with that, line of thinking.
It does.
So David did the thing that I was going to suggest for round 5, which is that we all take a legitimate under, and not an under on turnovers, but like a legit under performance from last season for round 5. And I think we just tease it ahead to the next Stat Draft episode. I think we leave the mystery. David really just he just shot out there and got ahead of us.
One? You're just doing one? Okay. You guys don't have one more?
I want some time to think. Look, you went on, you could have been patient and waited.
I hadn't talked about Miles in like 3 weeks. And so we had to get him in there.
Had to talk about him.
Yeah.
I want some time. I want to take my time. I want to take this into the next Stat Draft.
No, he helped us out. Now we can actually complete this round without having David on. And so now, thank you, David. I appreciate you being.
My pleasure, guys.
You took a good under. I mean, if you were going to get out ahead of us, I feel like that is a good under bet.
Now we don't have to wait. Okay, there you go.
But I want to wait. I want to really examine things as we close in on the end of this Hornets Stat Draft.
All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. There's David Walker. You can follow him on Twitter at David B. Walker. Doug Branson on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. Check me out on WFNZ every weekday on Wes and Walker from 12 to 3 p.m. Thanks for making us your first listen.
I got it. I know what my pick's going to be. I know I'm going to I'm not going to reveal it, but I have the next pick. I know what it's going to be.
All right, so make that episode your first listen as well, and then you can catch that episode anywhere you get your pods, including YouTube, where you should be subscribing. Are we at 7,000? I keep forgetting to check. We got to be so close. Let's get to 7,000. We're so close. So
it's drip. Yeah, YouTube, but definitely like if you're watching this on YouTube and you just love us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to us audio wise, that really helps us out. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, do it on all the apps. And subscribe, unsubscribe, and then subscribe again. It really does help us out. And I know we have a few more views than we do listens lately. So let's get on it.
All right, yeah, the podcast stuff. This just again, as Doug is always sure to note, end on the subscribe though. If you're going to stop, like because you have families and you have stuff to do, and you can't just be subscribing and unsubscribing from our podcast, make sure you end on the subscribe. Thanks for joining us, and then. Yeah, there you go. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.